What up, YouTube? Happy to report I've kept all my commitments to myself. No social media, no forums, no online gaming. I had a feeling the night I started this that it would be permanent. I have confidence. I had confidence and I have confidence that I was really done. It's always a beautiful thing when you just know after dozens and dozens of starts and stops and starts and stops and stops and starts again that you're just done. This is not, I'm reading off a script, but I wanted to add that you should give yourself props every time you quit, or every time, even if you do something you don't want to do, but if you stop for like 5 minutes beforehand and then you end up doing it anyway, you should give yourself credit because you did do something. Well, one thing I read that was really profound to me, I don't remember where I read it or who wrote it. It was just about changing your mindset about if you stop and then you start again, if you're trying to quit something, that you shouldn't view yourself as a failure. You should view yourself as like doing reps. You're like trying and then you fail and then try again and you fail. Like you might feel like, why even bother to quit at all? But you're building something up that eventually will pay dividends. And when all of a sudden it does pay dividends, it'll feel kind of like magic. And I don't want to like blow this situation out of proportion, but I do feel like very blessed that I'm able to do this. Anyways, let me carry on where I was at. So, how do I feel? Do I feel amazing? Much better? Well, yes and no. I feel more alive, but I also feel many negative emotions more deeply, and I'm having to sit with those. Main negative feelings are regret and grief. Really strong grief that I wasted so much time in my life. That I got sucked into the idea that distraction and spending so much time staring at a screen was the best I could do for myself. Again, going off script, you might see a little irony here because you're watching YouTube or at least listening to my voice. But YouTube definitely does have a special place in my heart. And the fact that you don't have to watch, the fact that you can listen to it while you're doing dishes, while you're taking like the dog for a walk or whatever else, and that it can be very self-directed. You're not kind of just going online and kind of seeing what's out there. I mean, you do if you just look at your YouTube feed. You're letting the algorithm kind of play you a little bit. But if you're searching for stuff, I mean, we're all being played, but we're all being pushed around by reality and culture and whatever anyway, but I don't know. You don't need to justify anything to me or to yourself or anyone else, because this can be a block for getting started. It's up to you to decide, I want to look at this and not that. I want to spend my time online doing this and not that. Like, it's just, there's no one, not me, nobody else who's going to be able to tell you how to live your life. So for me, giving up all this stuff, gaming and forums and social media has been really valuable. Anyway, back on script. So my negative feelings are regret and grief, really strong grief that I wasted so much time in my life, that I got sucked into the idea that distraction, spending so much time staring at the screen was the best I could do for myself. And I don't even think I got sucked into that idea. I think I just got sucked into the behavior. I don't blame myself. I don't feel much shame. I see that it made sense I would fall into this trap, but it's still hard to not be sad about it, and I wish I had more opportunities, social, educational, career-wise, and a more drive not to get mired in the quicksand. I'm not portraying myself as a victim, but I'm not portraying myself, I don't know, I think it's just good to see yourself, especially your past self, like with a lot of compassion. Like, I can see how I got sucked into these behavior patterns, and I don't think it's because I was weak or pathetic or anything like that. It's just like what happens. Yeah, I think people think like feeling all this shame about their past behavior is a good motivator, but for me, it's a better motivator to try to just look at it with clear eyes, objectivity, and say, oh, I see, based on my life experiences, based on the fact that my real life was not stable at all and I was moving around and I didn't have these real life connections. It makes sense that I would fall into these patterns, but that doesn't mean you have to stay in those patterns. I look back at my life over the decades and I see myself living in many different places with many different people, friendships, jobs, periods of unemployment, girlfriends coming and going, and myself seeking solace in the virtual spaces that stayed consistent. Of course, like all things, they were not consistent. They morphed and changed with those who inhabited them, but it felt consistent at the time. I think of all the people I thought I knew who I just knew their words online. I've always read a lot of books, but the internet often had a stronger pull because it was dynamic and interactive. I thought I knew these people, certainly not as well as my real life friends, but at least somewhat, and I didn't. I could get into a relevant story, but it's a tangent. I'll summarize in brief. Someone I thought I knew for over 15 years behaving badly when we hung out in real life. This was like the third time we hung out. The point is, as I said in my other video, chatting online doesn't teach you much about a person. Most importantly, it doesn't teach you how they act under pressure or anything about their character. Talk shouldn't be cheap, but in most people it is, and online double and square it. Without the distraction of the sea of content online, I'm taking a more hard look at my life, and I don't like a lot of what I see. I'm lonely because I moved around so much, because I took refuge in distractions, and didn't put in the work to find solid contacts that could be friends, colleagues, collaborators. No one really modeled that to me either, and after I dropped out of college at 19, I felt as if the train to success was leaving without me, that I was a disappointment and a failure, and I let that mind state linger in me, in large part until the present day, to be honest. I'm not an expert even on my own life, but I think conquering addiction is really about letting yourself feel the pain and realizing that things you're grasping onto for temporary comfort don't even provide that. By their nature, feeling sad, disappointed, lost, regretful, etc. is unpleasant and we want to escape it, but the way out is through. It's a corny quote, but I think it's apt. When you try to go around long enough, instead of going through, you try to go around. Or, this is my habit for a long time, or try to bide your time waiting for your circumstances to change, you'll see it doesn't work. It's not for me to tell you that, you have to see for yourself. It took me 44 years to really deeply understand that, and my understanding is still not through and through. Circumstance will change, but what's inside you stays until you do something about it. Anyway, I feel slightly more confident in myself despite all these dark feelings that I'm not running from as much. Not much has changed in terms of my life circumstance, but I'm starting to see them differently. I'm trying to be grateful for all my failures, all the embarrassing and unskillful things I've done in my life, and reminding myself that it's taught me things. Everyone plays the fool sometimes, however much they may try to hide it from others, or even from themselves. As a kid and young man, I oscillated between thinking I'm a total screw-up and that I'm on the cusp of greatness if I just got X, Y, and Z sorted once and for all. The reality is, I'm not especially terrible or amazing, just another life form doing its best. Thinking of oneself as special is a trap, whether it's especially positive or negative is almost besides the point. To be special is to be alone. I don't know what comes next, but I knew I was ready to give up what was not working. When you quit compulsive internet socialization, you realize that no one will miss you. Sounds dark, mean even. But the manic show goes on, and the online ecosystem closes around your absence like new skin growing over a tiny wound. All my chatter and my reading, the chatter of others, amounted to very little for my life, for my family. If I posted a photo of my kids, I might get 40 likes. But if I don't, no one will ask. And what did those likes do? Could I cash them in for anything? One pleasant afternoon with real-life friends, seeing my kids play with theirs is worth more than decades of validation or random discussions. The internet is for learning. It can be for entertainment, but it's like quicksand. Your attention on the internet is like money in a well-designed store. If you're not careful, you'll spend it all on stuff you shouldn't have, and nothing actually valuable to show for it. like a bad night out drinking, you might think you had a good time in the moment, but when you wake up with a headache the next day, you'll realize it was all rubbish. And all the fun things that happened, you can't even remember now. Going off script for a second, just try for yourself. Like, if you consider yourself an internet addict or a gaming addict, spends like 4 hours on the internet. It's really easy to do when you have nothing else to do, or when you have stuff to do, procrastinating, you want to escape from something. Just spend 4 hours, and then after those 4 hours, sit down, maybe with a notebook, and try to write down everything you experienced in those 4 hours, everything you learned, like the details of the games you played, stuff like that. And you'll find it's hard to kind of fill up many pages with it. Now, if you spend 4 hours having a deep conversation with, your family members or friends or loved ones or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, hopefully you'll be able to fill up a lot more information. So the time goes fast. And when you're spending all your time in ways that make it go fast, it's like kind of anti-life. You're like killing time. And everyone wants to kill time sometimes, but it's so easy to do, and it's so seemingly harmless, but it's actually quite harmful. And I still find myself, I don't mean to paint a picture as like, oh, I'm not tempted at all. This is like easy. I mean, in a way it is easy. It's like the temptation, it's just like blinks on and blinks off almost instantly. But I do have it, like, especially if I'm bored. Sometimes I'll just pick up my phone. Like when I'm bored or anxious, I notice it's very connected to anxiety. And I'll almost start, like, my instinct is just to like start typing in like F, to either go to Facebook or to go to this internet forum I went to a lot. And of course I don't do it. I don't even, like, I might open my lock screen. Look at Sophie, she's so cute. Oh, can't take it. But I don't do it. And it's a really good feeling. I don't know. There's I don't know if you guys know Andrew Huberman. He's like trending on the internet at the moment, but he has a lot of videos about science and behavior modification and stuff like that. But I don't think it was in his podcast. He was like talking to Tim Ferriss, or someone was interviewing him for a change. And he was talking about like he tries to say no to himself like 10, 20 times a day. And it's a really good feeling to like say no to yourself. Because you're not really saying no to yourself. There's no self. There's like 100 of you. There's like infinite of you. There's all sorts of like parts that some of them are noble, some of them are pathetic, some of them are strong, some of them are weak, some of them want you to do this, some of them want you to do that. And yeah, when you say no to yourself, people talk about reparenting in the like psychological self-helpy community, and I think it's a beautiful thing. But I feel like a lot of people think of reparenting like, oh, you got to be gentle with yourself because your parents were mean to you, so you just got to be like, there, you're okay. And I mean, that's probably part of it, especially if your parents were not so nice to you. But I think also part of it is disciplining yourself. Just, giving you didn't have boundaries, or you had really rigid boundaries, or you had really lax boundaries, or the boundaries you had like really had nothing to do with your well-being or who you are or what was good for you. It was just, whether it was too rigid or too loose, it was just wasn't about you, and it wasn't beneficial to you. So as an adult, you really have to do that for yourself. And the thing about the internet, and it's just like a casino with like lights and bells and whistles and noise, and it will feed you like, yeah, I mean, it'll follow your prompts. The algorithm will kind of feed you back what you want. But if you're not conscious, if you don't stop and think about what you're doing, yeah, it's not going to have boundaries on you. It's, when I say it, I mean these tech companies, Facebook and Google, and whatever other websites you go to. Porn, obviously. I haven't looked at porn in like over 2 years, so I'm happy about that. That's like a pact I have with my girlfriends. Like, some couples might not agree, but to her, she's like, yeah, it's cheating. And like, I had to think about it for a minute, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I see that, because you're looking at another person's naked body and letting yourself get aroused. It's not really loyalty. Anyways, I digress. So, so yeah, boundaries. This is part of reparenting. So anyway, back on track. Um, yeah. Anyways, so I'm not trying to lecture anyone or sell a 5-point plan. The how, what, where, and why of your internet use should be up to you based on your values and what you deep down get out of it. I mean, if you need it for work, if you need it to communicate with your family, if you want to relax and chill and watch Netflix or watch a YouTube documentary or even watch cute cats, like that's up to you. Like, yeah, that should go without saying. But I mean, I think it's important to point out that for many years, I may mention this actually, but I don't think I do, so I'll just mention it now. For many years, I was kind of looking for someone to give me a plan so I didn't have to come up with my own plan. But, and there's always people who will do that, whether in book form, some paid mentorship or, some YouTube series about how you're supposed to live your life. But it's up to you. And you'll never really follow anyone else's plan anyway, because they don't know you. You might for a little while, and then you might throw it away and try something new, and that's okay too, because that's part of learning. Yeah, anyways, the how, what, where, and why of your internet use should be up to you based on your values and what you deep down get out of it. A final note, I think a lot of times people don't want to give something up because they don't know what they'll replace it with. You might think, yeah, I'd give up X, but then I'd just be bored or I'd stop hanging out. Yeah, give up X, whether an activity, a person. So you think, if I stop doing that, I'll be bored. Or if I stop hanging out with so-and-so, say like a toxic person in your life who's kind of funny or who kind of is fun to be around, but you also kind of feel lousy about yourself after you hang out with that person. So if I stop hanging out with them, I'd have no social stimulation at all. So you procrastinate. But the thing is, you don't need a full plan. In fact, often having some random plan makes things worse, because you think your new plan will seamlessly fill the void, and it never does. Anyone trying to tell you you need a plan or a program to embark on change is trying to sell you something. If something is hurting you, give it up first and worry about a plan second. Obviously, it's good to have some ideas and new good habits to replace your lousy ones, but it's also worth something to accept the newly freed up energy and just be with it. And give yourself time to think about what you want to do with it. Easier said than done, so start practicing as soon as possible. Thanks for listening and good luck.